If you're someone that feels a sense of happiness over someone else's misery or someone else's misfortune, then you really need to look at the mirror and ask yourself, what sort of person are you? I remember a time in primary school, because I used to go to Belvedere Primary School. We used to have these South African fellow students. I even remember some of the names. There was Mandla, there was Sizwe, there was quite a few in our class. They used to have these ANC stickers in class. And at that time, of course, we didn't know much. There was no internet, but we just used to hear on the news that there was this apartheid thing going on there, and so on. And we're going back quite many, many, many years ago, because I'm talking about primary school here. So the reason why I'm doing this video is just to remind ourselves as a people that, when we struggle, one shouldn't be rejoicing over that, because at the end of the day, what are you going to benefit from that? What do you benefit from someone's misfortune, from someone else's troubles? What do you benefit from that? Unfortunately, we live in a society where people are constantly competing. And if someone does better in life, you rejoice because, you feel bad or you feel sad because you're going to be judged as the lesser person. I used to have a friend I used to get along with in high school, and life was okay until I set up my own business. And till today, our friendship has pretty much discontinued. So, from what I can see, it's because the friendship worked fine at a stage where he felt he was better than me. But the moment I set up my own business, although I wasn't making money at the time, he felt a very massive threat. And as a result, we didn't really talk after that. In fact, we our friendship just ended. I tried to reconnect a few times, and that didn't work. So where am I going with this? You see, a lot of the Zimbabweans in South Africa and also other nationalities, they are in South Africa because they saw that as a way of starting their own lives as compared to where they were in. And that is not even an issue. It's not even a problem. Today, some of us are in the UK here because we thought that that's where we want to build our lives. But in doing that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you become better than everyone else because you made that decision. And as I mentioned earlier on, unfortunately, we live in a society where people are judged based on material things and so on. So people get jealous when you don't achieve, and people actually feel happy when you don't achieve, and it is very, very sad. So to all the South Africans today that are attacking the fellow Africans, it's a sad situation because a lot of them have forgotten that when they were in a situation where things were bad for them, they were helped by the neighboring countries. I'm not sure how, or I'm not sure if any of these other countries helped, like Malawi and Zambia. I can only speak about what I know. It's sad that now these are the same people. They've forgotten that 30 years ago they were helped by the very same people in open arms. And I remember we used to learn a lot from the South African fellow students in primary school. And there was one time we even learning the gumboot dance. I remember it was a gumboot dance. And there was no hostility towards them. Everything was all good. But today, it's so sad that the same people that were helped when they needed help are the same people who are making fellow Africans' lives a misery. It's very, very sad. But having said that, there is one principle that I work on, or that I live with, and that is I don't really focus on trying to change people's behaviors or people's actions, because that is a very, very difficult thing to do. So I don't focus on how people act or react because it's unpredictable. The only thing that I know for sure can change is my own actions, because that's something that is under my control. So a few years ago, when I started making videos, I'm one of the first people that started making videos about retiring back in Zimbabwe. The reason why I started having that mentality or that idea was because Zimbabwe is our own country. Okay. It's our own country. And trying to build in a foreign country, there's a lot of things that you can't control. Yes, you can say there's democracy, there's the rule of law, there's this, there's that, there's this, there's that. I want to remind you a few weeks ago about the incident that happened in Ireland. Did you see how one incident of an immigrant that tried to attack one of the locals? Did you see how it turned out? How it turned into? Anyone of color was now in trouble, and this just happened overnight. Do you know that people can organize themselves and start doing all sorts of bad things to people just because of one thing? So all in all, with all these things, when I used to visit Zimbabwe, I didn't used to feel the anxiety of, oh, you know what, maybe this might happen, maybe this might happen, maybe that might happen. And that is how I framed my ideas on retiring back in Zimbabwe, because I grew up with this mentality that Zimbabwe is a bad country, because all the news and all the brainwashing was to emphasize that Zimbabwe was a bad country. So, sometimes, not that I wanted to believe it, but sometimes when something is repeated over and over and over again, you end up believing it, whether you like it or not. You end up believing it. I remember one time when my kid said, does Sekuri have a lion in his back garden? These are children that were home educated. But because of the documentaries they saw, somewhere, somehow in their head, they framed this idea that the whole of Africa was a jungle. But to their surprise, when we were visiting back home, they actually loved it. In fact, till this day, all my children, they love Zimbabwe more than they love England, in the sense that um, the food is better, there's more space, there's more relatives. That's the angle I'm talking about. Okay, so having said that, you see, it's it's very difficult to imagine that people are actually rejoicing and making a mockery over someone's bad situation. It's very, very sad, and I mean, I didn't want to make this video because it's a very, very touching video. It's something that really hurt me when I saw this, because some of the experiences that we come across, you can see that the attitude of people, our own fellow Zimbabweans, it's for the most part in a negative way. It's very, very rare for people to be genuinely happy with what you're achieving, genuinely happy with your plans and so on. It's very rare. Even the people that you think are close to you, start making success and see what happens. You'll find that very, very quickly things will change. And this is something that I find very, very disturbing. But what can you do? As I mentioned earlier on, and by the way, I don't have my glasses on, and right now I got hay fever, so my eyes are a bit messed up, and I feel a bit tired too. But anyways, you see, when people in South Africa, the UK, New Zealand, Canada, and so on were sending money to Zimbabwe. Everyone was benefiting. All right. Why don't we, as a people, take this opportunity and thank everyone who's sending money from the diaspora? Because diaspora remittances are in the billions going into Zimbabwe. They're in the billions. It's a lot of money, and a lot of families are surviving from that. A lot of people have changed their lives through those diaspora remittances, and yet we have this negativity in us that take us to the point where we feel so happy and we even mock and say, okay, you've been in South Africa for 10 years, 15 years. What have you done? Can you imagine asking that question? And you may be one of those people that were receiving some of these remittances, but you have the nerve to go and say, oh, look at them. What have they done? They're coming back to nothing. It's very, very sad. When I hear some of these comments, because I mean, they've been said to me, I remember a time where I was so tired. I was so tired in 2007, I think. 2005, I think. I was so tired of working here in the UK because the jobs that I was doing were just, yeah, they were tough. Every time I used to say to my parents, I need to come home, I need to come home. It was almost like I was starting a topic that is should never be spoken about. Life is difficult in Zimbabwe. Don't come back here. The government is like this. Everything is like this. It was so much pushback on the mention that I wanted to go back home. So from 2005 onwards, this was repeated year after year. Zimbabwe things are bad. Zimbabwe things are bad. So when I used to go on holiday, I used to go for 2 weeks. I didn't used to go on holiday for long. But those 2 weeks were quite emotional because these are times where I meet the family, I meet my mom, we spend a lot of time together, and there was no time to really see what was going on until there was one holiday before I made my decision to relocate back in Zimbabwe. I was there for 6 weeks. I remember it was 6 weeks. So I started to see how much things cost. I started to look at how much things last when you do your shopping and everything. And I quickly realized that the money that I was sending every month was way more. And what I discovered there was very crazy. The money that I was sending was over exaggerated because I was there now on the ground looking at, okay, how are people really spending this money? And I realized that it wasn't right what was going on. This was a way of just money coming in, money coming in, money coming in. And pretty much people were living a decent lifestyle. So when I realized that, I started thinking about the retirement plan. And that is when, without telling anyone, I just made my decision that I wanted to do that. There was a lot of pushback. And when people realized that, okay, we can't stop this guy, the 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 script was flipped. Oh, so you have a lot of money. Why don't you do this for us? Do that, do this, do that, do this. So even then, I quickly realized that, you see, when it comes to planning for your future, really no one really cares, to be honest with you. No one really cares about what your plans are, what your future is, and so on. You have to be the one who's in control of that and the one who cares. So where am I going with this? The reason why I'm let me just fix my camera here. It's raining, so I need to close my window. Where I'm going with this is, you see, the Zimbabweans right now who are coming back from South Africa, some of them, they've spent a lot of money supporting people back home, but unfortunately, they're now going to be treated like foreigners in Zimbabwe. I mean, is that even fair? Guys, I mean, just think about it. Is that even fair? A lot of families have benefited from the monies that were being sent from South Africa. But now that things are so difficult and they need to come back to be laughed at and to be seen as failures in life, I don't think that's a right thing to do. I don't think that's right. And we should be better than this. As Zimbabweans, as Africans, we need to be better than that. Because if we don't recognize what is happening right now to the South Africans, I just give you an example. In Ireland, there was a problem in Ireland. Ask people who live there and see. Go on YouTube and just type in immigrants Ireland and see what happens. You see, what we don't realize, and this is why I pushed for this idea of relocating back home. You know, your country is your country, whether you like it or not. And if things are not working fine, we are the people that are supposed to be fixing it. Who else? We cannot just wait for investors forever. We need to invest in our own country to the best of our ability. So we cannot depend on anybody else. So what Zimbabweans are doing is they're out there, they're working as hard as they can, but we are very, very, very vulnerable because politics, and I've been seeing a trend. Okay, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not anyone who is going to be so excited and just giving you hope, just hope for the sake of hope. No, I like to look at trends. If you look at America, immigration is part of the campaigns. It's part of what politicians use to win elections. South Africa, same thing. All these countries, immigration is part of the agenda. So even here in the UK, we can be happy that we have British passports, we have a house on mortgage, we have cars, and say to ourselves, you know what? This will never happen to us. I'm telling you, today you can be laughing at the South Africans or the Zimbabweans in South Africa. Tomorrow, 10 years time from now, who knows? Everything is going extreme. Everything is going extreme right. Who knows? With that passport, the way the South Africans are treating the Zimbabweans there, who knows what the UK is going to be like? I was listening to something on TV the other day. They were asking. There's a caller that was asked, "Is Saka, the football player, is he British?" And the guy on the phone said, "No, he's not British." And then there was the boxer Lennox Lewis. Is he British? And he was like, "No, he's not British." So he was asked, "So who's British?" And then he went on to describe the skin color, blah, 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 and all of that. So this is how people think, but they don't say it. I'm not saying every single person is racist or every single person, thinks like that. No. But it's one of those things that people are not necessarily given a platform to voice their ideas and voice what they think. That idea comes up when something bad happens, and then you see them all unite. And by the way, I'm not saying every single person in the United Kingdom is like that. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying those people who are enough to cause a problem will cause a problem. In South Africa right now, I don't believe it's every single South African who's at the forefront of these marches. I don't believe that. But the ones that are there, they are there and they are causing enough problems to make the lives of people uncomfortable. And this is something that could happen to even England. It can happen to England. So where I'm going with this is we need to support each other. If we can't support each other financially, we have to support each other emotionally. And most importantly, the one thing that we can change is our actions, how we act and how we react to this type of situation. Because if we make the lives of others miserable in what we say and what we do, we're not building anything. We're actually destroying things. So if you have someone that has been affected, this is your opportunity to support them. If you know someone that needs help, this is your opportunity to help. If you can't help, at least say words of comfort. Don't be one of those people that are jumping on the bandwagon of, oh, look at you, what do you have, what's this, what's that. Sometimes people may take this differently. For example, um, relocating is not easy, as you know from my videos that I do here. My house in Zimbabwe, it doesn't even have sofas, and for 4 years there's not been any curtains, no curtains. I used to put bed sheets as curtains, right? Why? Because I didn't have money. And guess what? People were laughing at that. People were laughing and saying, oh, look at his house, there's nothing in there, and so on. And this is what people think about. Look at him. If something goes bad, oh, he thought he was being very clever, he thought he was being very smart, and we just laugh at each other. If a disaster happens, people rejoice. You know, this attitude is not the right attitude, and we can't control what the South Africans do. We can't. At least we can control what we say and what we do as individuals. So whatever is happening to the Zimbabweans in South Africa, that in itself, I would say to everyone affected, you have to stay positive, but staying positive in itself is not a solution. But maybe this was the opportunity for you to go back to Zimbabwe and see other avenues of making money. Sometimes you have to be pushed into the deep end for you to learn how to swim. Sometimes it has to be like that. I know several situations where I've had to be in the deep end, for me to wake up and say, you know what? I need to take action now, because I was feeling the discomfort. So sometimes when life is too comfortable, you need that slap that wakes you up and says, you know what? You need to wake up. So maybe this is that slap, but I'm not saying this in a negative way. For those that have always wanted to improve their life or do things, this is the opportunity now to take advantage of this. And I'm pretty sure we're going to hear some stories of people saying, you know what, when things were bad, I managed to achieve this. And that'll be a positive story coming out of this. And for anyone who's going through a lot of hardship and misery, just stay strong and look for solutions. You see, this is one of the most important things. Every time you are in a place of discomfort or a place of misery, the most important thing is to focus on solutions. And some of these solutions, it can be something as basic as just writing a list of things, ideas, or an action plan of things that you can do to make money. That can be a very, very good starting point. So just sitting there and just feeling sorry for yourself, that's the moment where it's very difficult to be creative. But that's also the time for you to really sit down and come up with solutions. Just make a list of possible things that you can do. So don't feel hopeless. And I know right now you're probably saying, well, it's easier for you to say because you're in that situation. I've been through a lot of situations where I needed to dig deep with no help from anyone, but I had to dig deep. I had to be creative. It's not easy. So in those moments of hardship, it's also the moments where you are forced to survive, and the ideas that you come up with at that point can be very, very amazing. So be the creative one. Don't be the one that wants to take shortcuts to make money, like stealing, robbing, whatever it is. No, don't be that person. Be the person that looks at what you learned in terms of exposure in South Africa and how in what you can apply in Zimbabwe as a whole. And that in itself can be a breakthrough for your life. That can actually be a breakthrough for your life. There are so many people right now that if they're feeling down and then you go ahead and say all these negative things, it just makes the whole situation worse. This is why I'm saying For those of you that have families affected, sit down with the family and discuss together how you can plan and move forward. I think that's what's needed right now. We can't control how the South Africans act or react. It's not in our power, really. It's not in our power. You can't control what someone else is thinking or whatever they're doing. We can only control how we react. So, in all of this, it's very scary, and at the same time, it's very sad. But what is sad, what is even more sad, is to see fellow Zimbabweans laughing and making fun of someone else who's in misery. That is a very sad situation. So I hope we fix that attitude and call someone that you know is affected. Give them words of comfort. And if you can, you also need to stretch your hand and help. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.